What's good, y'all? Coach Logan Ryan here, and I wanted to share with you what the first training session looks like with me. So, outline I'm going to go over here is going to include everything I do in the first session. That's going to include the assessment, the warm-up, the program design itself, and then the recovery. So, starting with the assessment, the first place we're going to begin with is the background. So, background is going to include goals, training history, and injuries. So, with the goals, very first thing I want to know is, what are your goals? What is it that you're trying to get to? And where are you starting currently, right? So your point A, where you're starting, and then your point B, where you want to finish. I want to have an idea of what those two are. And I also want to get an idea of what's holding you back in your opinion, your perception, and that's going to give me an idea of how to get you from point A to point B. From there, I just want to know a little bit about your training history and any injuries that you have. Training history is going to be like what training you've done in the past, how often, what frequency did you work with a coach, etc. And then injuries are any injuries I should be mindful of as we go through the session and as I design your program, so that way that can help me put in any corrective exercises that are needed, or if I know that there's certain teaching points I'm going to need to make, I have an idea of that already from your injuries. After that, it's the actual fitness assessment itself. So there's going to be the body composition. That can be, I prefer doing body fat percentage. I think it's a much better measure than weight, but sometimes we don't always have access to equipment for that. So we can find your weight, and then that's going to be your body composition. And I can also assess just based off of looks of where you're starting. And then from there, I'm going to assess your mobility, and I'm going to start by assessing your mobility during the warm-up. So I'll get to that in a second when I get to the warm-up. But mobility to me is something that's always being assessed on every single exercise. Every exercise I kind of view as a mobility assessment, because if we have in your program a squat and you struggle with doing a squat, or I notice that you have a hip shift or whatever the case may be, that's giving me an idea of what your mobility abilities are, and then what I need to do to push you further to move the needle. And then the conditioning as well. So if you're training with me and it's going to be a strength training session primarily, your conditioning, I program in supersets. You'll see that when I get further into this. So your conditioning is going to be tested throughout the entire session itself. And I'm really assessing your energy systems, your alactic, lactic, aerobic, etc. So all those things are being assessed in this first session. From there, we're going to get into the warm-up. So I like to use the RAMP method. It is the most time efficient, but also the most effective in my opinion. RAMP stands for raise, activate, and mobilize, and then potentiate. Raising, all our goal is at this point is just to increase the blood flow and your internal body temperature, so that way you're going to move a little bit better. Activate and mobilize section is really trying to prepare key joints, in particular the hips and the shoulders, although that could include ankles, that could include elbow, wrist, etc. But a lot of the times for me, it's mainly just your hips and your shoulders, and then some key muscles like your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, deltoid, muscles of the rotator cuff, etc. And then we finish with some potentiation. That's gradually increasing the demands, getting you ready for the session itself. And really the emphasis is just getting your nervous system excited or ready for what you're about to do. So for the warm-up, I use two main warm-ups. I didn't realize I didn't have this on presentation. So I use two main warm-up styles, and you can see this video on the left. That is more the intermediate advanced warm-up style. But for beginners, using that RAMP method, we're going to start out with a march, and then we're going to activate and mobilize using the fundamental movement patterns of lunge or a split squat, push-up, squat, prone, Y raise for pulling, and then Romanian deadlifts. And then we'll finish with high knees. For intermediate advanced clients, we are going to go with high knees to get your body temperature up. And then for the activate and mobilize, it's going to be more, I guess what you might consider traditional mobility type of exercises, where it's combining movements together. It's going to be a lot of hip flexion, extension, thoracic rotation, etc., mixing those things together. And then potentiation for our intermediate and advanced clients is going to be deep split exchanges, which are basically split jumps or scissor jumps. Everybody has different names for it. In terms of the program design itself, the majority of my programming comes back to the 6 fundamental movement patterns. If you're an athlete, we're going to include some other things like jumps, sprinting, throwing, etc. But if you're just someone who wants to get fit, wants to lose some weight, get in better condition, whatever the case may be, really the majority of your program is going to come back to these 6 fundamental movement patterns of squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, and carry. So in terms of the program design itself, this would be for a 45-minute session. Warm-up is going to take about 8 minutes. That's not going to really change between sessions for me unless you have an injury or something that I think needs to be programmed into your warm-up, some type of specific exercise. But then again, I'm still going to keep that to 8 minutes. Then I like to program in supersets. I pretty much always do 3 supersets. This program that I have here is designed more so for a beginner or just somebody who, again, just wants to get generally fit. So first superset is going to include either a squat, like you can see in session A, it's squat and a bent row. Superset 2 is going to be a Romanian deadlift and a bench press. And then superset 3 is going to be standing posterior pelvic tilt, carry, and side squat. Session B follows basically the same template, just the exercises are going to change. But they basically all follow this squat, pull, hinge, push, and then something for the core and an accessory exercise. So like accessory during session A is side squat. Accessory during session B is face pulls. Both are critical, and I think for Gen Pop and even for athletes, it's going to get, side squat gets us in the frontal plane. Face pulls get our shoulders pulling back. Most of us work in some capacity with things in front of us, whether that's a computer, a phone, a tablet, doing construction, whatever the case may be. Items are in front of us. Our shoulders tend to come forward as a result. We want to work on bringing those back. Really good for our posture overall, getting our shoulder blade in line with our rib cage, etc. For recovery, I generally say, let's start with one of these for homework, and then we try to stack habits from there. But we got to get you doing one of them to start. So I want you to choose one for your homework. That doesn't include sleep. You already have to do that. That doesn't include nutrition and hydration. You already have to do that. But really the other things of deep intentional breathing, and you could do meditation or walking or yoga, but whatever activity it is that you choose to do, it's doing deep intentional breathing where the chest rises and then it falls so that we were getting a lot of air to our lungs, but we're making our diaphragm work, expand and contract. So that way we are getting good deep breaths. In addition to that, getting sunshine and getting outdoors is tremendous. Sunshine is tremendous for our general physiology, and outdoors is really good for mood. So I think the combination of getting outside and getting some sun is awesome for recovery, as well as laughter and gratitude. Those things are tremendous for your mood. If you're always in this stress state, then your sympathetic nervous system is going to be turned on. It's going to be pumping out cortisol. That's not good to be in all the time. When you're working out or you're in fight or flight, that's awesome. We want to be sympathetic. We want to have some cortisol pumping through the system. But when we are in a relaxed state or basically not working out, we want to be more relaxed overall. Parasympathetic, we don't want to have cortisol pumping all through our bloodstream. And then last, just spending some time with loved ones. Again, that is same idea. It's laughter and gratitude, getting more parasympathetic. But in addition to that, that's just going to get those feel-good hormones, serotonin, melatonin, or maybe not melatonin, but I'm blanking on the other ones, but serotonin being one of them. So those are the general things that I want for recovery. And in conclusion, good training is going to apply the principles of GAS, which is general adaptation syndrome, SAID, which is specific adaptations to imposed demands, and progressive overload. And this training style that I've just shared with you here of the initial assessment that's going to help me design the warm-up program and recovery, it aligns with those principles. At the end of the day, your body needs repeated exposures to a stimulus to get an adaptation to happen. So whether that's getting bigger muscles or that's losing weight or getting faster and jumping higher, your body needs repeated exposure to those stimuli. And in addition to that, it needs it to be progressively overloaded. It needs to get more difficult over time. And that's what this was designed to do. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any interest in training with me, hit me up on social media. Coach Logan Ryan is the general tag, or you can shoot me an email, coachloganryan@gmail.com. Peace.